chat group, but we are absolutely in a different place than we were 1 week ago, and I fear that a week from now it will be a significantly potentially worse place than we currently are, and we are starting to see that play out in social and emotional concerns as they relate to teachers, as they relate to parents, and even as they relate to kids. And so from my vantage point, and I'd love Jeff to comment on this, we're starting to see some kids and some adults showing greater signs of anxiety, greater signs of, I don't know if it would be depression but something that looks something like that, sadness. We are starting to have both sickness and fatalities hitting our community. And I do think that's going to increase. And Jeff, I'm just wondering what you're seeing and what practical advice we can start jumping off to think about as parents and as colleagues and as family members.
I'll be glad to jump in. And even before I do that, Trudy, I'm so sorry that I forgot to mention you. I feel awful. I know you're being nice and shaking your head, but I feel awful. So to jump into Adam's point, we are seeing an increase in some anxiety, and not only with our students, but with our parents as well. And truthfully with some teachers. And it makes perfect sense with what's going on and what we don't know and what we're hearing on media. And I think that there really is some concern that we have to, and some time that we have to spend looking into this. So I can see in the chat already that Courtney Evans just wrote a question about, are there certain signs? And yeah, there are signs, and we have to look for them. I'll hold off on those for a second because I'm sure Polly's going to jump into some of those signs, and we talked about them the first time we met as well. That there is no doubt that what's going to happen is that there's going to be some level of anxiety, some level of trauma for some kids, and a certain amount of grief that they're going to experience because of what they are missing out on. And looking into all of these things, what we want to avoid is our kids going into social isolation. I don't know that we can avoid some anxiety from the social distancing. I don't know that we can avoid anxiety from the fears that are out there. But the way that we learn how to respond as parents and teachers, and the language that we use and how we talk to our kids, ends up being an incredibly important piece. So Polly, I'm going to hand this off to you just for a second here for if you want to jump into some of the signs like we had talked about in the last call.
Sure. So I think, as Jeff highlighted, anxiety looks different in everybody. We all have a certain sort of threshold for it, and a little anxiety is a good thing. Before you're, standing up in front of people, you should have a little bit of anxiety before you're taking a test. So it's the more extreme signs that I think we want to be watchful of. Some of those, especially in our younger children, may look more like behavior, impulsive behavior, restless behavior, defiance, disrespect. Maybe, as I said last week, they might be a little sassier than normal. Some of that comes from being cooped up, but some of that is some unwritten or underlying anxiety that they might be feeling. Sometimes there's the classic sort of withdrawal, and that also too is something that we are, talking a lot about, when kids kind of retreat into their rooms, not necessarily wanting to participate in a family dinner. Maybe not just once, but on a regular basis, or not wanting to connect with you or with others. Those are things that I think just are things that we should be keeping in the back of our heads when we're observing our children and ourselves, because we're all dealing with this in different ways.
And I'm going to add in that another sign that you're going to see, and I just want you to pay attention to this, is your child's ability for resilience. So if you are noticing that they are, and their ability to handle frustration, so their frustration tolerance, if you are noticing that their fuse is even shorter, that's something to pay attention to. Now, when I said this up at the high school one last week, a lot of the parents were laughing because a lot of the high school kids already have shorter fuses. However, for you all, if you are seeing changes in this, if you're seeing that with certain situations, they're getting a little bit more angry more quickly, or a little bit more sad more quickly, these are signs that the frustration tolerance is going down, and this is a really good opportunity for you to jump in and begin to have some discussions with your children about this. I'm going to read here, Polly. We have a couple of longer things in here that I'm going to read to you. Somebody, I just won't mention names. It would be very helpful to provide the children with the time with their classmates and teachers to acknowledge the current situation, and also to set the tone for remote learning. Morning meeting is an excellent framework for connection and to set the expectations for the day.
I can jump in if you want, Polly, or
Sure.
do you want to go? Or was that the end of the question?
That was it.
Oh, okay. So I think this week has been so great to see the children connect with their
Oh, did Jackie? Oh, it's me that froze.
Lower elementary kids.
Yeah, and I actually put an answer in the chat to that question. But certainly happy to talk about that more. I think we'd made the decision to go slow with our live sessions this week, trying to not overburden families with that. You know, possibly right in some ways, possibly not the right decision in other ways in terms of those connections for kids. Next week there are many more live sessions with the homeroom teachers, with the specialist teachers. Some ones that we expect the kids to be there, and others that will be an optional, let's jump into this PE lesson, and let's jump into this yoga session or this story read. And you know, to get the kids in a lot of different opportunities to be with each other, with their classmates or their grade level peers, or even across grade levels too, as well as with different teachers. So a lot more of those in there. You know, would it have been helpful for some of the kids this week? Yes, maybe, but it also might have tipped some of the parents over the edge that we're trying to keep them away from the edge of. So, you know, I hope that works, but the feedback from you through next week is going to be helpful too, as we can find out what that scheduling looks like for you through that sessions.
So the computer lovely kicked me off. The technology, I jumped back on. So I think I may have missed some of the chat questions, and I didn't hear what the response was to the morning meeting piece, but I do have a thought about whether or not teachers should be bringing up these types of discussions in elementary school in a morning meeting. And my thought is no, because we don't know what children are bringing into each one of those meetings. We don't know how each child is being impacted in their home. And so if we don't know these types of things off the bat, what you don't want to do is have a conversation that may trigger a certain child who's sitting behind a screen, where we don't have the ability to be sitting with that child or pull that child and be able to comfort and talk to and help that child. Do I think that we start getting into conversations about COVID-19? Absolutely, because I think it's, as Adam said, it's going to impact our community, it's going to impact family, it's going to impact friends, and we need to be prepared and ready to handle that. But for right now, I am not a big fan of opening up elementary school meetings with discussions about COVID-19. I just think that the downside right now is greater than the upside. I think that really should be handled at home with parents, and we can help provide you with some of that language.
But if I could just add, I think teachers are already thinking about if and when it does come up, because depending on the conversations that teachers are having with the kids, I think everybody's fully aware it may come up. And so they're ready to kind of handle those in appropriate ways. But obviously, I think it makes sense to, as Jeff said, really push this back and keep it more at the home level at this point.
There are a lot of questions about bringing the kids together more often. So just in reading them, I see one of them ends with, would it be possible to bring them together more often? The next one also talks about bringing them together. Any thoughts, team, about bringing them together more often?
Yeah, I mean, Trudy and I and Flynn and Chris and Adam, we've all been talking about this a lot this week in the two spaces, both in the programmatic space and the social emotional support space. And I think when we were originally planning our rollout, we were imagining it would be a week. We were thinking, okay, we have a lot of upskilling to do for families. We have people sharing devices. So we didn't want to roll out week one with too much live connection. What's been really clear, both from the teacher side and from the family side, is this is a desire. And so you will see next week, like Trudy mentioned already, a lot more live connection opportunities. I do want to put a caveat there. We recognize that not all your children, and we've experienced that this week, are able to engage with everything we are putting out. So just because we are providing more opportunities, this is not mandatory participation. So again, every family is in a different situation, and you need to deal with the social emotional health of your unit before you think about how do I get them into band practice, right? So it's an opportunity, but it's certainly not an expectation. But you will see more live engagements across the whole school beginning next week.
Can I just add to that? And you know, the goal is to make it clearer for you too, which ones are ones that are more important to try and get your child in there. If they're in a DLP reading group with 2 other kids, that's when we really want them in. If it's the whole of 1st and 2nd grade doing a PE dance off together, that's one, it's great if they can be there, but if it doesn't fit or work for you, or that's not an environment your child feels good in, then that's a good one but to leave off. But we're going to put that more clearly in our messaging, so you know this is an optional one, or this is one that we really want you to be in there. And your teachers are reaching out more individually for those ones that are really important for your child.
And I agree. And I think, you know, I think Jackie said it very well about the mental health of your unit. I think that was really well said. And when we come out of this, you know, are we going to be more worried about the social emotional health of our children, or whether or not they've jumped from this reading level to the next reading level? And I think we would all agree that the social emotional health of our children is really what we are going to try to focus on through all of this. I'm going to keep reading.
Can I jump
please.
in on one thing about that? So with the social emotional health of your children, what I'm starting to see is, then you're probably starting to see too, is that they're feeling anxious and they don't know where to go. And so this morning I had 4 one-on-one conversations that were just great. So anytime your child is like, I just need to talk to someone, and they're not going to bring it up in the morning meeting that they're feeling whatever, make sure they connect with a teacher that they can have, or an administrator, that they can have that one-on-one to really let down. Because sometimes, this is where I'm going to get emotional, having a child like let down in front of a teacher is really important, and then they can pick themselves up, but they got to first let down. So so reach out if your child is needing that one-to-one support.
And there's also the 3 mental health providers in this school. We'd be glad to reach out. They can reach out to us and talk to us on the phone. All of you are more than welcome to reach out to us and have a private Zoom call or a private phone conversation, and we can guide you through some of this. After our last forum, I had several parents call me and say, okay, great, so give me some individual stuff for my specific child because my child's different with this. And I had phone conversations with those parents. I know, and I'm speaking for Polly and Laura here, but I know that they'd be glad to take those phone calls and help guide you with that. And with
Right.
that, I'll keep reading.
Well, if I could just
Oh,
add quickly.
sure.
So yes, exactly. I've connected with a number of parents already. And in the conversations with Jackie and Trudy, talking about giving kids an open forum where they can drop in, where I might be hosting a snack, or, hey, jump in, we might play a little hangman together, just an opportunity to connect again, and see where kids are. So we are putting that together, hopefully to be rolled out this coming week.
Great. There was just a clarification comment here, and it says, when I say acknowledge the current situation, I mean learning from home, that we are asking them to adjust to learning from home, and there are expectations. So is that something that can come from the teachers and not the parents? I think that's the clarification. That might be more of a Jackie and Trudy question.
Sorry, I keep jumping in first, so I was pausing.
Sorry, and I was reading through the comments to see if I was missing anything so I could respond.
Okay, sorry, Jeff, say again exactly what you're looking for. I'm so sorry.
I responded to a comment earlier, and then I think the person was clarifying with me and said, when I say acknowledge the current situation, and I jumped in thinking it was about COVID-19, this person saying she was meaning more learning from home, that we're asking them to adjust to learning from home, and there are expectations that are required of them. And maybe that's something for you and Trudy.
Sure. And as you can imagine, because these are little people, especially in my division, and we just gave them Google Hangout privileges, there's a lot of learning that has to go along with that. So I've had a few of those conversations this morning too about responsible digital citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, we are trying to design a program where your children can be independent and work through the program. I'm talking primarily now about the upper elementary school, and Trudy will jump in because it's very different at the lower school. That said, you know, your children are only in upper elementary school, so they are going to require some, like, okay, you need to take a break, honey. Okay, honey, are you doing your work or are you on YouTube? You know, all those kind of things they are still going to need you for. I know that some kids feel like they start their day and they're like, I have to do everything before I have lunch, and that's not working well for families. And then other kids' parents are like, I just can't ask him one more time to do the math assignment, he won't do it. So we are trying to use the morning meetings also with the children to be like, these are our expectations. That said, I always, in every conversation with teachers and with parents, come back to, you first take care of your unit. So if the battle is coming out around getting the math homework done, the unit health comes first. So you stop. At some point you stop, because it really doesn't matter, and we're going to catch your children where they are when they come back. Now, how they behave, our behavioral expectations are exactly the same. So should they be getting on a Google chat and using inappropriate language or distracting others? Of course not. Does it ping on my email as soon as they do that? Of course it does. So am I having follow-up conversations with them about, if you continue to be unable to use your Google chat in an appropriate way, I will take away this privilege as the logical consequence? Yes. This is exactly the same kind of conversations I would be having with the children if they were in the building. It takes time for them to realize, oh my gosh, Mrs. Jenkins is still going to be our principal even when we're at home. So that's just a journey I think we're all on together. But yes, we are expecting for them to engage in responsible, respectful ways at home in the same way we do at school. And I don't want you to have to be the police. I don't. That's not a nice role. I have to do it sometimes in my own home. So I don't want you to have to go there. Reach out to me. If you feel like your child could use a 10-minute one-on-one with me about their learning behaviors, I'm very happy to have that call.
Yeah, and so jumping in there, I mean, this for us is in many ways very similar to the start of the school year, where the teachers are trying to set out their expectations as to, this is how you behave when we chat, and this is what I expect. But that is challenging for you, especially coming off a 2-week break where they're at home with you and you don't have to do this, and suddenly they're at home with you and you do have to do this. So that's confusing to little children. What do I do with this? Does mom really mean it when she says I have to sit down and do this? Or is this something that, like anything else during spring break, it's an option? So that is confusing, and it's going to take a while. For some instances, it's going to get easier when work starts to come back to the teacher, and there will be a little bit of that kind of purpose for the kids to see, and they'll get that feedback with their teacher. And the more those live sessions increase from next week, that will help that purpose come through. But it is challenging, and we do understand that. But yes, as Jackie says, if you can avoid the fight, avoid the fight. Work for 15 minutes, take a break, have a snack, go for a walk. Another 15, take a break. Ours is set out very much that you can work this around the schedule that works for you. So do what you can do.
Great. We have 16 new messages, so I'm going to try to get through these. This one says, can you discuss the appropriateness of the kids getting together with each other using their GCDS Zoom account? It sends some kids are doing joint lunches. It's not apparent to many that it's okay, but is it okay to do that?
I can jump in, but Polly, feel free to jump in too on this one. I mean, for me, that's a social outlet. So that's the whole, it speaks to the point where that someone said about joy. We're trying to find moments of joy. I know that that's also like a time for families. So some families are saying, you know what, mealtime is a time where we all get off the computer and we all come together. I know in some families that doesn't work. In my house, the kitchen just seems to always be open and no one's remembering to load the dishwasher. I'm just being honest. So it's like for some families, you might want to say this is family time and we're all together, no screens. For other families, you might say this is your social time and I'm going to set up a Zoom call for you and 3 friends. I think that's a parenting decision. Some of where the mess of remote learning comes in is what is school and what is parenting. And so that's where the partnership comes in. But I don't think that it's for us to really mandate what works for your family. I think that's where you say, these are our family's expectations, and I'm really sorry if you don't like them and you were born into our family and not another family, but this is just the way it is in the Jenkins house, you know? That would be kind of my thinking around lunch Zoom calls.
Any thoughts? Should I keep going?
Sure. The only thing I was going to add is while I love those social connections kind of happening outside of the classroom and outside of school, just being mindful that there will be kids that are going to be feeling left out. So, you know, maybe it's an opportunity to say, hey, who in your classroom haven't you connected with yet? Who might you like to connect with? So I just, you know, want to be cognizant of the fact that we want them to have these connections, but at the same time, we know there are going to be kids that either aren't included and want to be, or are included and don't necessarily want to be. So just being mindful of that.
Thank you. So my son is in nursery, and I have noticed that after Zoom sessions, my son's behavior is pretty wild. It is pretty impossible to get him to focus after. I think it is so exciting to him, and then the kids aren't there to burn off the excitement with.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think that that's not that different to what you'd see in the classroom when they've had a really big session together and they've all been singing and jumping around. For that, I would just, you know in advance when the Zoom session is going to be, I would structure your day that we do a Zoom session, we have snack, we take a walk, and then we try and do the next thing, because it's super exciting, especially if you've been stuck in your house with just your family, no offense to the family, but to suddenly see all your friends again for the first time. So I totally get that they're a little bit wild, but I would try and put something in after it, like one of the PE sessions or a walk that helps bring them back down, and then some breathing and some mindfulness, something to help with that. But that isn't that unusual to see to nursery when they've come out of one of Miss Brooks's music lessons or something like that. They're excited, they've had a good time.
And I would suggest that if you know it's always going to happen right after one of these, that maybe at lunch or at dinner time, you make a plan. And the plan is, hey, look, right after these Zoom calls, I noticed this. Tell me your 5 favorite activities. Let's write them down. Let's write them right here. And then right after your Zoom call, let's do one of those 5. You get to pick. And maybe today we pick this one, tomorrow we pick the next one. But it gives them a schedule to go right into, and it's an activity that they've chosen, so they have some control over it, and that they might be able to put their energy directly into that activity instead of everyone going, oh my gosh, look at all this energy, what do we do with it? But I agree with Trudy. I think that this is a pretty common behavior. The next comment is, I've been incredibly impressed by the way this has been thought out and implemented. I did complain a little bit about feeling inundated by emails, but you've all done a great job. Thank you. So I guess that's just more of a message to us and to pay attention to the amount of emails that are being sent to you. The next one is Polly. It says, these social times with Polly will be fabulous, all capital letters. So I too have been incredibly impressed with how it has been handled this week and appreciate the effort to avoid overwhelming us all at the lower school level. Thank you, thank you. Both my kids have enjoyed this week, agreed that it appeals to my more introverted child. Not sure if our social skills are depleting day by day. The Zoom call for my 2nd grader seemed a bit wild too. I think they need to be tightly administrated. My 5th grader's Zoom session had all the kids on mute, and that was successful. Perhaps Zoom meetings can be one-to-one that require conversation with my 2nd grader. Otherwise, it looked really difficult for the teacher to discipline.
Jeff, I could jump in on this one. And for those of you that don't know, I teach 8th grade history. And I'm on day 3 of remote learning with my 8th grade history class. And I can promise you, from somebody who's been doing this for more than 30 years, I'm learning too. And we had a group of 11 kids so excited by the questions I was asking about the Cold War that it was 15 people talking at the same time, and there were only 11 kids on the call. So I think what's happening is our teachers are going through a learning curve as well. And we're all starting to figure out some of the tricks of the technology. And we're also starting to figure out that pedagogically, we're in a different world than we were just 4 weeks ago. And as we are hoping to give your kids a runway to get used to this new delivery of curriculum, we hope you'll give us a little runway as well. My 3rd Zoom class was definitely better than my 1st Zoom class, and the kids are actually starting to understand some of the intricacies of running a Zoom class. And I'll give you my favorite example. Debbie Carrick tried to run a choral class for the middle school chorus. I have never laughed as hard. There were tears streaming down my face. She was trying to have 142 kids sing that song from Rent, about 5,000, 25,000. They all started at a different time. They all started off key, and there was 17 screens of kids singing, and Debbie Carrick going like this, and it was awful. And Debbie just put her hands down and shook her head and said, I got to try something different. And to her credit, she did one with the upper elementary where they did a dancing thing to Under the Sea. And that was amazing. And it was so cute and it was so well done. So just give us time as we start to get better at it and get more fluent with what we're trying to do.
Great.
To that, and I think that's very true. And I think as in the lower elementary, because this was a lower elementary parent, when we do our smaller group ones and they start next week, that will give the kids and teacher a lot more opportunity for the back and forth to do that training in, well, this is how we're going to do this and this is what it's going to look like. The first one was super exciting. They will get calmer and they will get better.
The next one is a comment. It just says, some added options to connect and have fun and keep it light would be great. Jackie, I see your response here. I love the idea of keeping it light and sprinkling in the joy. Wait for it. It's coming your way. Love it. The next one says, could we stop using links to YouTube? We do not trust it. It would also be helpful to know more about the security of the Google and Zoom platforms, so some of us can get comfortable allowing our little ones to be so visible online.
Yeah, I'll take that one, Jeff. A couple of things. One is we're being very conscious about your kids. Your kids' images should not be on any of our YouTubes or anything public facing. So our teachers all know that, and we're doing double layers of security to make sure that's happening. We actually are encouraging our teachers to publish some of their better lessons to public facing YouTube pages, in part because we want public schools to pick it up. We want other schools around the country to feel free to take my lesson on the Cold War and share it with their 8th graders. I think that's the democratic thing to do. I think that's the right thing to do. And Sam Rosenfeld, who's our assistant director of technology, has put up more than a 5-minute YouTubes for teachers on how to roll out different technologies. He's crossed the 500,000 view mark right now. So there are a lot of teachers out around the country who are benefiting from the work that he's doing and we're doing as a school. Now, that said, we've adjusted the settings on all of the YouTube videos, so you shouldn't be receiving some of the things that YouTube does. They sometimes, you watch a video and then it says, if you like that, you'll love this. You shouldn't be getting those settings because we've managed to switch the default settings on those. So we are very conscientious of both the Zoom, the Google, and the YouTube security settings on all of those and feel very comfortable with them. Some of you may or may not know Zoom became HIPAA compliant like a week ago. And again, that's a federal designation, which is under security headings. So we're keeping our eyes on that, and we will continue to potentially make some changes. I think in the lower school, you might see some additional email addresses coming your way to further allow us to make sure that whatever comes to you comes with sort of the pre-built-in security settings that we can manage through our tech team. But right now we feel very comfortable.
Great. The next question I skipped, it must have been when I got kicked off of Zoom and had to jump back in. And as I'm reading it, I'm thinking this might be something, I'll read it, and then I think it might be handled probably with Trudy or Jackie in private, but it's my question got skipped. What am I supposed to do for one child who's getting less from his class than his twin? He thinks the school or teachers are not as interested, and I could see his disappointment when he compared her Zoom to his. He asked when his teacher would FaceTime him after his twins did a FaceTime with her. How do we help them not compare?
Yeah, happy to jump in there. And I think that parent and I, we can connect afterwards one-on-one to talk about that specifically for her family, because I'd love to hear more about that. In general, though, the grade level plans together as a grade. It's a collective delivery. So that the actual work that children are getting is all the same. The same piece goes out to every class in the grade. As of next week, all the expectations for the number of whole class Zooms, individual Zooms, small group Zooms are exactly the same across the grade. So they should be getting the same thing. Now, will one Zoom lesson look a little different to another one? Possibly. There's different children in the group. It's a different teacher. They bring their own personalities to that. But the expectations for the frequency and the length and the content are the same. But if there are little specific pieces in there, it would be great for you and I to connect after this. I'm happy to give you a call. I'll send you a private message in the chat and we can set up a time.
Great. Great job, everyone. One question is, will the kids be getting their homework looked at and homework feedback?
So that's a good question, actually. So one of the things that we're really shifting to, and I'll speak just to the upper elementary, and Trudy can speak to the lower school. We're really shifting to the idea of feedback, which we know is actually best practice in education, is the ongoing formative loop feedback. So students who are turning in work in the upper elementary school on Google Classroom are getting feedback either through a dialogue with their teacher in a one-to-one session. If it's like a Google Doc, there might be comment links on the side. So that feedback loop is meant and is designed to be constant. Now, one of the things that teachers were finding too is, you know, not everyone is handing in the work. And it was like, yeah, and we set that expectation that not everybody would hand in the work because it depends on where every family is at what time. So teachers are also adjusting to, well, should I wait? Should I not give feedback until, like, you know, do I give everybody 2 days? Things like that. So those are all conversations that we're having on the kind of back end in planning meetings. But your child will be getting ongoing feedback. There's not going to be we're doing math the whole way through and then there's a test. It's not going to look like that as much. It's going to look more like ongoing feedback on work that they're turning in. So if your child has been handing in things and feels like, I haven't been receiving that, they should, if they're in upper elementary school, send their teacher a Google Hangout chat. Hi, I was just wondering what you thought about my writing, or send them an email, and then they can set up a time to do that if they're feeling like they're not getting enough feedback. I saw Mindy on feedback. Mindy also mentioned about teacher feedback, and if the children do it, they should turn it in. I'm agreeing. So if the children do it, they should turn it in. But if a family can't get everything done, they should absolutely feel permission to not do it. You know, ideally, everybody would do it, but is that realistic? Not for all families. So I just want to make sure, it's sort of like a messy thing, right? It's homework, you have to do it. Well, yeah, but not really. Like, it's not a message we normally send as a school, but this is not a normal situation, as we all know.
Yeah, and I can jump in about the lower elementary. So we are not on Google Classroom. We didn't feel that developmentally that was the right platform for our students. When they go up to the upper elementary, they'll be using that, whether we're in school or out of school. In the lower elementary, we do use a program called Seesaw, and we're going to be rolling out those details to you this weekend. Again, trying to take it easy this first week of asking parents to send things back to the teacher seemed to be a lot. It was more about getting established in these routines, how to use the Zoom, how to work from home, how to kind of understand what this new normal for the time being looks like. But as of next week, yes, work will be coming back to the teachers so they can give them feedback in those small one-on-one and small group sessions. So you'll be hearing more about that from me on Sunday.
Great. Polly, this next question is probably going to go to you, which is, noticed my son, who's a first grader, more demanding of us of our time after we finished remote learning and resistant to understand that I have things to do. Any suggestions, please?
Yeah, so I saw that one pop up, and I'm sure your little guy is just looking for more and more of your time. And I think that is totally normal. The kids are looking for more and more attention from parents. Parents have less and less time, obviously, if they're working and need to be making their own calls. So I would kind of step back and say, you recognize that that's what he's after. He's after your time. I'd use it a little bit as a motivator. When you finish your homework and I finish my call, then let's go out for a walk. You know, use it as something that you can sort of leverage a little bit with him. Again, validating for him that you know he's wanting your attention and you're going to make that happen, but we need to get through these tasks as far, first and foremost. And then obviously praise him when you see him doing a good job working by himself, right? The kids that are single children or children that don't have a lot of siblings, they are trying to figure out ways of occupying their time. So love the way that you just sat and did that puzzle while I finished my call. Let's go do this together.
Great. I love it. And I would add into how they ask you for your time is important too. So if you're getting the mom, 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 and you get that screaming from the other room, you could probably also talk to them about different ways that they might be able to come in and ask you for your time as well. All right. I have noticed that remote learning is a big learning curve for children, parents, and teachers. Each day I learn a little bit about how my young child learns. I suspect teachers will be changing things as the weeks go on. I feel that we will all adjust as this moves forward. I agree. I love the idea of anticipating the difficulties ahead of time and trying to plan accordingly. For my younger child, I mix up the order of the day according to my child's energy level. So that was more of a comment. And one of the things I really hope that we can do with this forum going forward is that you parents can jump in and give us what's working in your house too. And if you share with us what's working, it goes out to our entire whole community. So thank you for sharing that. Stephanie writes, I find YouTube much easier to use than other links. Stacy, to clarify, writes, just want to clarify, I understand the classes can't be the same and teachers have different styles, but just how do I help him understand and not feel bad?
Hi, yep, sorry, jumping in there. Yeah, I hear you, and yeah, that makes sense, your question completely. And I did just send you a email if you want to connect after this. But yeah, does my child feel bad? I don't think that's any different to how it is in school, except in school they're not probably so aware of it. You know, each class runs slightly differently to the class next to it. Each teacher is slightly differently, and you do get my class is doing this and my class is doing this. But it's not so obvious as it is when you've got two screens in your living room and the children can see each other and they can see what's happening. I think, again, back to that conversation that I'm sure you have in your house anyway, we're all a little different and it always sounds a little different. And then try and pick some of the things that you're seeing from your other child's teacher as to look at the way this is working in your classroom and try and pull on those and get them to identify the pieces that are really strong in their room. And I think that will pass. I think that's something that this first week, particularly if it sounds like they had an additional Zoom session and the session sounded a little different, that was pretty obvious. But I think that will pass as this becomes more of the normal for a while.
The next one is in response to Polly talking about inclusiveness. Great if the 5th grade teacher can propose or recommend a classmate to have a quick chat with or create a Zoom chat room for social. Our current class prior is social in classroom. but not online like our 4th grader. Our daughter does not have iPhone and not on the regular chats with girls. She has only Hangout and Zoom on tablet.
Yeah, I saw that one, and I know you're 4th and 5th grader, and they're two very different children. So I think just recognizing that, you're doing a great job, mom and dad, about making sure you're limiting sort of their screen usage, and you've decided not to, provide them with an iPhone at this point in time. So it does kind of change what they might be accessing and interacting with. I think just maybe stepping back and either connecting with a classroom teacher or connecting with other parents, and maybe setting up something. And maybe that's something that you're comfortable with, whether that be let's do milk and cookies at 3 o'clock, and let's connect with, Sabrina and her mom, and, Courtney and her mom, something along those lines, something a little bit more specific and intentional. Important. Reach out to your classroom teachers. They've got great ideas, and as Jackie and Trudy have said, they will be making even more opportunities for these connections in small groups and the larger classroom setting going forward.
I'll keep going. I'm looking at the time, and I realize that Laura and I have to jump off for a 2 o'clock meeting, so I'm going to read these questions quickly. Not that we want to rush through them. If we don't get to all of them, I'm guessing we might want to type up some responses to those parents and send them out directly. Although I feel like it's a shame because the other parents miss out on the answers. This is another question I skipped. I'm so sorry. We spent so much time restricting screens. Now we are all in. How has the school factored in screen usage research, and are we balancing appropriately for brain development, anxiety management, etc.?
Yeah, so I wrote back to Courtney in the chat on that because I think I've been an administrator who's been speaking really strongly all year about like balancing technology, and now I find myself wondering if I should be making my own TikTok. Anyway, we are shifting and adapting to this world. So we started off really this week thinking asynchronous learning, thinking put together some short videos. The kids can engage with a short video, get off, do some stuff that's not on the screen, and then turn it in. Like that was our balanced approach for limiting the technology. We're on day 4, and what we're hearing over and over again in the chat and from the parents and from the teachers is like, we want more live contact. And at the moment, the only way to do live contact is through technology. So we're sort of in this, again, this is just not normal. So best practice in education and around child development is very hard to put into practice in this situation where we're dealing with the pandemic. So I'm choosing myself as a parent and as an educator to say this is a capsule moment. Like we are in a very weird time, and this is not what we would do were we not in this situation. So yes, there is more technology. Yes, we are leaning on things that normally I would never recommend, but this is not a normal time, and so we have to fluctuate. I would say the amount of technology your children are having now, if that continued once we went back to live school, I would be very, very concerned. Now, if you are a family who is very strict about technology and you decide that next week there's all these live opportunities and you don't feel comfortable engaging with them because you continue to want to restrict technology, that is absolutely a parent prerogative, and we support you in that. So you engage as much as you feel able to do and that you feel comfortable with, but we are not changing our philosophy around the use of technology in education writ large. We are just changing our approach in this kind of pandemic crisis moment, I think. And I think I speak actually for all of GCDS in that, not just for the lower and upper elementary. That's our philosophy writ large.
Yeah, I have one thought about it, which is the high school kids know that I've come into their classrooms and actually said to them and explained to them why I dislike technology for so many reasons. And yet here I am saying to them right now, connecting socially is so important that I'm willing to literally throw away some of my dislikes about technology. For me, the social engagement, the social connection outweighs the technology piece. Having said that, do I think that there's going to be things like screen fatigue? Absolutely. Do I think that it's going to cause impact on our prefrontals? Absolutely. So then as parents and as teachers, we have to be aware of that, which is why at the high school level, we're having 15 minutes in between classes. Our psychology club is the students are going to be putting out different strategies that the kids can use in those 15 minutes that are not screen related, so that they can help their brain sort of reset, if you will. So I hear that, but to me, this social isolation piece and the increases that we're going to see with anxiety in those pieces, the technology far outweighs it. The next question is, do the teachers encourage the kids to be doing homework together on FaceTime?
I can jump in on that. So we're being very, we're seeing that as collaboration as opposed to helping each other. We're using it as a, like, if you want to be together in a space working on it, that's great. Teachers have opened up Zoom rooms for a similar thing. It's like, if you want to come into the Zoom room and do your homework, you don't even have to engage with me, but we're just in the same space. So this is about focusing on learning, not like assessment. Right? So no one's saying, oh my gosh, I don't think that's Billy's work. I think Billy did that with Susie on a Zoom room. That's not independent. That's not the space that we're in right now. So if kids want to work together and they want to edit each other's writing, or they want to, like, you know, practice a presentation, run a joke by a friend before they put it in the Flipgrid, all of that stuff we are encouraging, because it means they're connected. And we've always said their social emotional health is the most important thing. So if that's what they need, that's what, you know, you give them. If it gets to the point where you can't get them off the screen because they're socializing so much towards the end of the evening, that's a great time to be like, I think we need to have a conversation as a family. You're on tech so much for school now. Maybe all the other tech, you got to drop off. And I am still saying that TikTok is not the best way. I'm just still saying that.
You should keep saying it, Jackie. Keep saying it over and over again. Let's see. My daughter, 5th grade, generally finishes the day feeling fairly triumphant that she did it mostly herself. +1 on the trying to work and help with math problems, etc. I'm not sure if that's a comment or a question. I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding the chat. Anybody have any ideas on that one?
I would just say that if your child can get through the day independently and feel successful, that's a triumph for your whole family. If your child is struggling and does not get through everything in the whole day, but your family feels healthy when you sit down to dinner, you should also feel triumphant.
Yeah, look, you all know the marshmallow study, right? Where the kids had to sit with a marshmallow for X amount of time and not eat it. And the ones that didn't eat it, they have found after 18, 19 years are significantly more successful. So we know how important that response inhibition is and that independence is. And we're trying to, you know, train that even at the high school, where kids in the high school level, they do a math problem, they don't get it. They want an answer immediately. Like, why didn't I get this? It's okay for them not to get it and wait a couple of hours before their teacher gets back and meets with them and then goes over it. But learning how to have that response inhibition and then be independent and do all this stuff on their own, to me, is really good education. I'm looking at the time. Polly, I may have to make you the host of this meeting, or are you already a host?
So I think you set it up, so I don't know if I am a host or not. I can take a peek. Actually, can you investigate that? And can I just address one last one on here? I'm happy to stay on longer, but I think this one's so super valuable, and I appreciate you putting it in there. We touched on it last week, sort of perfectly imperfect, right? Step back as a parent, step back as an educator, and say, you know what? Let's just do a good enough job, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. You do not have to be a perfect parent all the time. And I think so many of us, faculty included, want the very best rolled out for your kids. We want the very best rolled out for our own children, and we want to be doing the right things all the time. But I think so super important to step back and say, at the end of the day, we want to come out of this and come out of our front doors as mentally healthy parents, families, and children, for sure, most of all. So please just recognize, I'm thrilled you put that in there, because over and over again, I continuously say that. I try and remind myself that at the beginning of each day and the end. It's hard. This is really hard. And together, we've got a great community that's supportive and here for each other. And we will get through this. But I think being kinder to ourselves, so super important right now.
And I'm just gonna say I have to drop off and meet with the 4th grade team who are busy planning for next week. But it was really lovely to see you all. And of course, I am always at home. So feel free to reach out anytime. And it is so great to see all you little people walking into the room. Olivia, it's so nice to see your face. Yeah. And I hope we see each other in person really, really soon. I miss you guys.
And so it looks like in order for me to end this meeting, it's going to end the whole meeting.
Yeah.
So let me just say this. What I really want to be able to do is keep having these weekly meetings for the parents. And I hope that you'll jump back on and join us. And if we didn't answer any of your questions, and there were a couple that I didn't get to at the end, will you please email us directly? And we will try to answer those questions to the best of our ability, or set up a Zoom call with us and we'll jump on and see if we can answer them that way. I hope that's okay. And thank you everybody for joining us, and let's keep coming together as a community.
Nice to see you.
Bye everybody. Sorry I have to end it.
Stay well.
Bye-bye.